I love having great conversations. So I've learned to record them because there's always some nuggets in there. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell me a little
cool.
bit about your podcast and what you're trying to do.
So I am the content creation process for me is quite annoying.
Mm.
So I'm more of a do it live type person. So I love the idea of allowing myself the freedom to be able to my cat is over here rebelling emotionally right now. Hold on. So I love the ability to just jump on and have conversations and just let things flow. So that's the overall nature of the podcast. But the mission is more so along the energetic spiritual route. And I hate when he does that. So I want to create a community where people feel seen and heard and also understand that we're not alone, as well as your struggles are my struggles are yours. We're all one. And we're going to discuss things that people don't always feel that comfortable discussing. So, yeah.
Being vulnerable, right? There's a strength in being vulnerable.
Yeah. Being vulnerable and sharing the things that sometimes we want to hide, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, with the crux of my business, I wasn't making any money whatsoever in the coaching world until I started owning my story. And once I started owning my story and telling my story through podcasts and different groups and everything like that, things started opening up for me because I was in the realization, how do I expect people to be vulnerable with me if I'm not vulnerable with them?
Right.
For the longest time, I was ashamed of my story because all through growing up, all I wanted to do was fit in. I didn't want to stand out. I just wanted to be like everybody else. So I didn't want to talk about that, because I would almost be in tears talking about it because I wanted to bury it.
Yeah.
But I felt like the only way I would be able to make any impact is if I started telling my story. So when I started doing it at first, it was real shaky because I didn't want to do it. But now I'm at the point where I've done it for a few years now. It's, it's not, I don't really have any emotional ties to it as I once does. Now it's more like um, a lesson learned for me, and hopefully a lesson learned for people who are listening.
Right. Yeah. So, what do you think is the scariest part of telling a story and being vulnerable? Like, what do you think that is?
I think it's the reaction from others.
Yeah.
We're trained to be in a community, right? And we want to be accepted in this community. And when you kind of bear it all, you're putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, where people can use this information against you. So there's an element of being scared of what other people are going to do with this information that you're telling them. But if you can get over that and not let that rule your life, it opens so many more doors for you.
Right. Yeah. Very true. So your story is quite remarkable in that you had that diagnosis at such a young age. What age was it? Can
I
you
was an
just go
infant.
into?
I
Okay.
was an infant. So cerebral palsy happens when there's lack of oxygen to the brain at labor. And as a result of the lack of oxygen to the brain at labor, it can leave one side of the body paralyzed, it can affect your speech. And these things are permanent. They don't go away. So I was diagnosed as an infant. So I had a great mom. And if it wasn't for my great mom, I wouldn't be walking right now because
Mm,
she didn't take the first diagnosis from the doctor was he's not going to walk. And when he gets to a certain age, we need to put him in a wheelchair so he gets used to it. And my mom didn't take that as the right answer, so she got other opinions and found a physician willing to help. And me doing physical therapy 5 to 6 times a week, and with this doctor's help and my mom's unrelentless attitude, I was able to walk around age 2 or 3. But it was a struggle, especially early on, because when I was at 5, I remember around 5 or 6, I probably could run 25 to 50 yards before my leg would give out and I'd have so much pain. and my mom would put me into sports, soccer. And at the time, during that time, I probably, I was just standing there while kids are playing soccer around me. And I'm like, I told her after practice one day, I'm like, Mom, I don't want to play soccer anymore. This is ridiculous. I'm just standing there. Kids are making fun of me. I want to quit. And I'll never forget what my mom told me that day, because it's stuck with me to this day. She said, Paul, if you don't want to play soccer anymore, that's fine, but you have to honor your commitments. So you have to finish that soccer season. And after that, if you don't play soccer anymore, then that's fine. And so that's what happened. I'm 41 and I haven't played soccer since I was 5.
But you finished that season though.
But I finished that season. Yeah. And that's kind of the mantra of my life. If I commit to something, I'll finish the commitment. And if it's something I don't want to do after that, then I don't do it anymore. But I at least honor the agreement that was set for me. And I think that's extremely important.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So how else did your mom play a major role? I mean, I know that's a big takeaway, a big token right there at 5 years old, but what other ways did she pour into you and help you not?
I think one of the biggest ways that she's poured into me is she has the mentality that there's no problems, only solutions. So if I would go to her about anything, she would not let me wallow in any problem. She started me thinking, going, okay, have you tried this? Have we done this? Let's go. Let's do this. Let's do this. There was never a challenge that she couldn't handle. So it was always about, like, let's find the solution to the problem. Let's go. No need to wallow into it. Let's go. Let's find it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that's something I take today, especially talking with people one-on-one. And even now, now that COVID's the restrictions are going away a little bit, and where I'm at, I'm getting back into doing the workshops for companies on developing a culture, for a good culture for the employees, so they want to stay at this job, because so many people are quitting. They want this something else, and it's not. Most of the time, it's not about the money. It's really not. It's about the respect and about the enjoyment of the position. So if we create something that people want to come to work on Monday, they're not going to want to leave, because they're enjoying their work. They're having fun. And when they're enjoying their work and they're having fun, they're more productive.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something I experience in the corporate world. It's hardly ever about the money. It's hardly ever about the money, especially as the generations come. I'm a geriatric millennial, and
Me too. I'm 1980.
yep, 85.
Yeah.
So it's not about it. It's about the holistic. We're very much more holistic than generations before us. Generations before us were able to compartmentalize, but no, who I am here is who I am everywhere, and I have to honor that. So I think that that's a really cool thing that our generation has.
Yeah.
So your mom is basically a rule breaker. You had an awesome mom that was a rule breaker and just did not accept what she was told, which is so powerful, which is absolutely powerful. So you had a great mother, but you also had essentially kind of a mindset coach, basically, for a mom,
Yeah.
So
I did.
yeah, that's awesome. That's very rare. Very rare.
Yeah. I mean, I'm internally grateful to her, because, like, if she didn't do what she did, I probably wouldn't be talking to you right now.
Right.
My whole life would probably be 100% different.
Wow. So what are some other parts of your life where you just don't accept limitations or limits? Or
Well, I can tell you this. So I was bullied and teased quite a bit in middle school. My parents got divorced, and I had to change schools around that time. And just being a new kid alone is going to be tough, because all these other kids have been going to school with each other for years, and they're becoming teenagers. They're going through hormonal changes, and sometimes they're not the nicest people during that time. So just going to a new school alone is going to be hard. But I'm a new kid who walks with the limp and holds his right arm differently. So it was even tougher for me. And in the school, I really couldn't break in. I didn't make any friends. I was bullied, teased, spit on, tackled, you name it, they did it to me. And I came from an old school mentality, probably from not the millennial generation, but probably the generation before, where you don't tattle. So I just held all this anger and sadness within. I didn't let it out. And while all this was going on, um, I was raised Catholic, so my mom wanted me to go to Catholic high school. So I had to take an assessment test to see where they were going to place me when I got to high school. Well, I must have bombed it, because when I met with the principal and my mom, she told the both of us that they're going to put me at the lowest level possible, and she doesn't expect much from me. I do not seem like I'm college material. So I'm being bullied and teased in school, and now I think I'm stupid. And I don't know what came over me, but eighth grade, I was sick and tired of feeling angry and sad all the time. Um, those were my go-to emotions because of the environment I was in, but I knew deep down those weren't the emotions that I wanted to express on a daily basis. And I thought, what could I do to distract me from these feelings? And at the time, I loved baseball. So I said, what if I tried to make my varsity baseball team in high school? So I started playing fall ball, winter ball, spring ball. And if I wasn't doing that, I was throwing a tennis ball against the wall. And a coach came up to me one time because I was playing so much baseball. And he's like, man, Paul, you play a lot of baseball. Do you have any goals with this? And I was embarrassed to tell him. I didn't want to tell him that I wanted to make my varsity baseball team because I thought he was going to laugh at me. Somebody with cerebral palsy making a baseball team? Not going to happen. But he was persistent, and he finally got it out of me. And I was just bracing myself for him to tell me that, forget it, man, you're not going to do that. But he didn't. He paused and he said, that's doable. And I'm like, what? That's doable? He's like, yeah, but you got to have other people keep you accountable for your goal. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? And he's like, after practice tomorrow, you're going to go in front of the team and you're going to tell the team that's your goal. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. They're going to make fun of me. And I'm like, you got to do it. That's the only way you're going to accomplish this goal. Other people need to keep you accountable for this goal. So I reluctantly did that. And instead of, and I thought they were going to laugh at me, but they didn't. They clapped. And the great thing about this, I know this now, but I didn't know this when I was going through it. I was starting to send a different energy out towards these kids. Instead of, I was holding my head up, my shoulders back. And as all this new energy I was sending out, they were sending a different energy back towards me. Instead of bullying and teasing me, they started rooting for me. And that alone is the win. But the cherry on top was I was able to make my varsity baseball team as a junior and a senior.
Awesome.
And then I graduate high school, and I think about that goal. I'm like, wow, I can't believe I made it. I when I first made that goal, it was just to distract me from all this noise I was hearing, but I was able to do it. And I thought about what that principal said to me around that same time about not being college material, because all through high school, I mailed it in. I just did enough to stay eligible to play baseball because in the back of my mind, I was like, what's the point? I'm not college material. Why waste any more time? Just do enough to stay eligible and move on. So my grades weren't that great. And I thought, well, if I could do this goal with baseball, why can't I set another goal for myself to be college material? So I enrolled into a junior college because I was the only place that would accept me. I got myself a math tutor. I got myself another tutor for other subjects. I went to the math lab. I did everything necessary to increase my grade point average. And I took my barely a 2.0 all the way to 3.5, where it was able to transfer forward to a 4-year university and become college material. And I wanted to go back to that principal and say, see, you were wrong. But you know what? I in the end, I probably should thank her, because all through college, I was hearing her voice saying that it wasn't college material. And my next thing was, I'm going to show you I am. So with her voice, it catapulted me to get out real quick and hit the books hard and do what I needed to do to graduate.
Wow. That's really like alchemizing that negativity into something just so much bigger and more powerful.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So it seems like the obvious next step is to be a mindset coach, but what other did you have any other careers or
Yeah,
anything?
no. So that was many years later. So basically, what happened was I graduated college, and like any other 22, 23-year-old, I had no life experience. I have no idea what the heck I want to do. I had a family friend who was a CEO of a small bank, and he said, what if I hire you, become a mortgage loan officer? I'm like, okay, let me try it. I got nothing going on. So he brings me in, and when I first get there, no one wants to talk to me. I'm getting shunned. And I quickly realized what the problem was. Everybody knew I knew the CEO of the company. So it wasn't because of my talents, it was because of who I knew. So in their opinion, I didn't belong there. So they were going to chew me up and spit me out because I'm somebody's favor. And I said, you know what? I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to prove my worth. So I didn't complain about the workload. I had a positive attitude, and from afar, I was observing what the top loan officers did in the company. And I'll never forget my first day of wanting to go out in the field and get loans for the first time. My family friend stops me and goes, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm going to go out and get loans." He's like, "Nah, nah, you are not ready. Let's get you more training. We'll get you out there." I'm like, "No, no, no. I got this. Let me go." And he's like, "Okay." And he turns out he was right. I need way more training, and I was falling on my face left and right. But after months went by, I started to realize what value I could add to these clients. And I started bringing in more loans and more loans and more loans. And 2 years later, I became a top producer in this bank. And the people who didn't want to talk to me when I first got there are now coming to me with questions on how I was able to turn everything around at so fast of a clip. And I thought that this was going to be my career until I retired because I really, really enjoyed it. But 2008, 2009 hit, and the economy tanked it. And I would get a job in the mortgage industry, and the whole company would go belly up. And this happened to me 3 or 4 times. So I was really starting to lose the luster of doing this business. And I remember the last place I was at, they brought in this motivational speaker to motivate us, to bring up the sales numbers, all this good stuff. And the guy blew me away. The guy was tremendous. So after the presentation, I went up to him and I said, "Man, that was a great presentation." And he was really cool. He allowed me to pick his brain a little bit. He said he started as a life coach. And I'm like, "What the heck is that?
Right.
Explain that to me." And I'm like, maybe that's what I want to do. So I started getting my certificate, and I starting to tell people on this that's what I want to do. I want to get into coaching and this and that. And they're kind of like humor me and going, "Okay, life coach, whatever, go ahead and save the world, but get loans first." And they were just doing all this stuff like that. And then things got real serious. I started posting stuff on my social media. I had my website up, and the legal department where I was working at the time said, "What are you doing?" And I was very transparent. I said, "I want to do this on the side. I won't affect my full time job. It's all good." And like, "Well, we're gonna have to investigate this. This could be a conflict of interest." So they came back with this five page report of what I could and couldn't say. I'm looking at this going, there's no way I'm going to make any traction in the coaching world if I follow this to the T. So I spent a year just doing mortgages, paying down all my debts, doing everything necessary. And that year later, I quit. And people are like, "What in the heck are you doing? You just made President's Club. You're a loan officer. This coaching thing is pie in the sky nonsense." I'm like, "Well, I got to give it a go. I got to give it a try." And they're like, "Okay, whatever, you'll be back." And that's when I'm telling you about being vulnerable, because I wasn't vulnerable to these clients at first. And they're like, "Why am I hiring? Why would I hire you? I have no idea who," they weren't saying that, but I'm sure that's what they were thinking. Like,
Yeah.
"Okay, buddy, yeah, I'm going to tell you my problems. I have no idea who the heck you are. And I'm going to pay you to do that? No way, man. Get out of here." And it wasn't until I started to realize that I need to be vulnerable. I need to tell people my story and open up about me so that they can feel comfortable to open up about themselves. And I'll never forget, my first client ever says to me, "Paul, I don't have cerebral palsy, but I have X, Y, and Z. And I feel like you understand me. I would love to hire you." And then I've just been building from that.
It's awesome. So the path from not being vulnerable to being vulnerable, was it like a light switch or was it a longer process than most would want to admit? Or like,
It was a longer process than I wanted to admit because,
yeah,
like when I first started telling that story, I mean, I was almost in tears talking about it. So I didn't want to show that emotion. Again, worried about what other people thought about me. But then when I started telling my story more and more, and starting to getting an impact of people, even that, most people don't hire you as a coach, but most people will say, wow, that's a great story, Paul. That's awesome. I didn't know, or this and that. And I was getting more of a positive impact as opposed to people saying, oh, yeah, I knew you were weak, or whatever I thought in my head. It was just, sometimes when you say things in your head, and they're in your head, you think of this grandiose, horrible things that are going to happen. In reality, that's far from the truth of what's actually going to happen. And sometimes you just gotta verbalize it and say it, or write it out, so you can tell your mind, look how ridiculous that was, when you actually verbalized it or actually wrote it down, and you look at it, go, that's not going to happen. But you let your mind just swirl around with all these negative thoughts, you can go down this rabbit hole. But if you stop yourself and actually write it out and really analyze what you're saying to yourself, you're like, no, that's far from the truth. That's not going to happen. That's just fantasy nonsense.
Yeah. That right there, that nugget is so important. It's that I think of the quote, your mind is a horrible master, but a great servant. And so you have to tell your mind what to think,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
leave it to, it's protecting us. It loves
Yeah.
us. It wants to protect us. So it's not wrong,
Yeah.
but it's can be very, very
Mhm.
ill-informed at times if you don't challenge yourself in that. And so many people don't challenge themselves in that. So they're
Yeah.
stuck thinking and feeling a certain way.
Yeah.
So wow. So so give me an idea of what was in that 5-page document.
Like, I'll tell you, like, I couldn't from like social media, if I posted anything in between 8 to 5, even, how you can just time it, where you can just post it and it's on a timer. If anything was posted 8 to 5, that was against the rules. If you mention anything about your work or what you're doing right now, that's against the rules. If you bring up any type of finance, that's against the rules. And you cannot take any clients until after 7. Just on and on and on, and we're gonna, and anytime you post something for your business, you're gonna have to get it reviewed by us. Like, no.
That is so crazy.
Yeah.
That is that's something I talked about with a friend about, like, my core values are being authentic. And so like I don't want to do the code switching. And so that was very much a document on code switching and just not being yourself here, but
Yeah.
being yourself here, and yourself is not allowed here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So the mindset coaching, tell me more about your business and how that's going and where you've been with that.
So yeah, so it's picked up since COVID. It's been really good. And I was at this realization, though. I did this day where I was doing, I think I did 3 or 4 in the same day. And after the fourth, or third or fourth one, I was like emotionally, like, done, because we go into some deep stuff, and I'm doing that 1, 2, 3, 4 times in the day. And I'm like, I love it. I love my clients, but I'm thinking to myself, there's no way
Mm.
I can build a client base where I'm doing 5 a day, Monday through Friday, and 6 a day, because I do Saturdays too. I'm thinking to myself that 30 clients a week. I mean, there's no way. I emotionally, I don't think I can handle that. So I started kind of like tweaking some stuff, and I'm thinking, what if I start doing like workshops on this, and talk with organizations, and put on workshops for different companies or different organizations or different moms groups and stuff like that. And I started dabbling in it, doing it on through Zoom and such. And now, since restrictions are kind of subsiding, I'm starting to dive in with some in person. Matter of fact, I have an event this Saturday. It's a free event uh, locally. It's a 2-hour event where I'm doing a workshop on kind of what we kind of we're talking about here, where we get vulnerable. So I preface the whole workshop with this. I want to set up an environment where we're not judging ourselves, and we're not judging other people. That way we're in a safe space where we can be vulnerable. Once we feel like we're in a safe space to be vulnerable, then we can get uncomfortable, because we can get uncomfortable, we can share, and we can clear our mind for goal setting. And I have this saying, take back our pen and start to write the story that we want for ourselves, not for anybody else. Because all through my life, people wanted to take the pen from me and write how they thought my story should go. And all through my life, I've said, no, I'm going to write the story of how my life should go. And that's the passion of my practice, is take back your pen and start writing your story that you want to live. Because, we go into autopilot all the time, when we got jobs, we got kids, we got all this stuff. And we start to just live for Friday. We want to Bodos Monday through Thursday, and we just want to live for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and that's it. And I'm like, no, because what happens is you start to get, into an age where you start to reflect on your life, and you go, wow, I really didn't live my life the way I wanted to live it. I mean, I only lived 3 days a week. I really didn't live for those other days. Why? That's silly. And so I want people to go after whatever their passions is. I'm not telling anybody to quit their job or anything like that, but to discover different things that they want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. The being in a pandemic has really made people wake up to themselves way more than that autopilot mode that we have been in for so long, for too long.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can definitely see how this chaos and tragedy would create more of a space for this type of work. I think it's not a coincidence. It was time for us to awaken, it was time for
Mhm.
us to really see ourselves and others, and maybe too much of others.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's awesome. So you've transitioned more from one-on-one to workshops and corporate stuff
Yeah. So
now.
I still do one-on-ones, and I pick up like on this workshop. Hopefully I'll pick up a couple one-on-ones, but I want to make my income more on the workshops than anything else.
Right.
Several reasons, because it's so much fun. I mean, one-on-ones are fun too, but like I said, we go deep.
Yeah.
And I'm a passionate person. I'm a sensitive person. So I take on a lot of their energy. And obviously, I need to work on that as far as boundaries are concerned, because it's just too much. I want to help them. It's that saying about, you can lead them to water, but they have to drink. And I'm like wanting to take their head and go drink, 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 and I
How
can't
do you
do
not
that.
see this? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'd love to be able to link to your collateral and all that stuff with this episode that we put out. So
yeah.
I'll hit you up for that, and a headshot and a bio afterward. And hopefully
Okay.
we can be friends on Facebook too.
Yeah, we'll love that.
So
I love that.
awesome. Awesome.
I have a Facebook group called Rewrite Your Story, and so it's just people all over the world. And like I told you about, they allow you to tell your story with no judgment, only support. And I have meetup groups once a month where we get together and we allow everybody a space to tell us what's been going on in their lives. And the whole group's really supportive, and we lift each other up, or we celebrate their wins as well. It's not just all about what their issues are. We want to celebrate when they're winning too.
Yeah, for sure. That's cool. I'd love to join that. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
No problem. You have a
All
good
right.
day.
You too. I'll see
Okay.
you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.